Okay, number 3, the ordinance to authorize the city to participate in a firearm buyback program.
The first speaker is Barbara Messner. After Ms. Messner is Sandy Frazier.
This totally ties in with due process, advance notice, everything that George Mintz fought for. You know, he was denied being able to speak 10 minutes on an item, and then, you know, Sessoms apologized.
No, it's not. This is on the firearms buyback.
I'm aware. I'm just making a comment because we sat through a lot of, you know. Okay, authorize the city to participate in firearm buyback program and destroy surrendered firearms requested by council members Branch and Jones. You know, the issue isn't buying back firearms. It's preventing crime and taking the guns away from the people who shouldn't have them, the ones who are committing the crimes. It's unbelievable how many, you know, crimes are unsolved. Yeah, all, you know, there's so many preventable crimes in our city, including May 31st. And, you know, I'm told, you know, I'm no longer allowed to speak on appointments. Why can't we speak on appointments? And the gentleman who spoke, the one person
This has
on
nothing to do with the
WebEx,
topic.
this is city government, how it operates, and what they were talking about was not being involved. And you talking about taking away WebEx, that person wouldn't have been able to call. Everybody doesn't sit through, okay, so, you know, you still haven't honored, all this time, you still haven't honored the victim families. You have appointments for, you know, like I said, this has everything to do with crime and how it's handled in our city. There's still no memorial for Ryan Keith Cox. You're talking about a street. The post office was named for him, but there's no sign like there is for Myra Obendorf. You know, all crime victims matter. And I told Mr. Dyer that I wasn't for a recall if it wasn't for malfeasance. You know, not everything that's dividing us. Thank you.
The next speaker is Sandy Frazier. After Ms. Frazier is Shanina Francis. I messed that up.
Hi, thank you for giving me some time. It's going to be very short. I am against a firearm payback program. I am against using my money to buy back firearms from people in general. If you want to buy back the firearms, I suggest you take it out of your own pockets, not mine. Okay? Bad people with guns should be in jail. If they've committed a crime with a gun, they shouldn't be roaming the streets in the first place. And they're going to, even if they turned in a gun to get money, they're going to turn around and get another gun. So I'll keep it really short. I'm against it. I'm against using my tax dollars to buy back firearms. Thank you.
Do you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. Would you mind returning to the podium,
Ma'am.
please? I know this summary thing in the newspaper really didn't adequately communicate, so I'm just trying to pose it. If you understood that all we're doing is authorizing the police department to accept guns, and we're using no public funds, it's a private group on private property using their own money, no tax, collecting the guns. All we're allowing the police department to do is to take possessions of the guns they buy that they have to bring to the police department. We're not on site. We have no involvement other than to have the guns delivered to us, and state law requires us, that this council has to authorize the police department to receive. So there's no city people collecting the guns, there's no city money getting the guns, we're not operating the event on public property. I know that's not in this, if you read it in the paper, But
No, it's
does
not.
that change your view of what's going on in light of knowing that the facts are that we're not engaged in any way in the transaction?
And
I-
getting them off the street.
That makes me feel better.
Okay.
That no tax dollars are being used. However, the police are involved, so they're actually taken away from what they could be doing to prevent crime. But I do appreciate that no tax dollars are being used, because that was my hot button.
Thank you,
I don't
ma'am.
like wasted tax
But
dollars.
I can understand how you could, from the summary, could misunderstand what's
Yeah,
happening.
because that was not the way it was
Yeah, and
presented.
Mr. Dehaney would like to speak.
And Vice Mayor and to the members of council, there are no on-duty police officers that are being pulled off of duty. In fact, the time is being covered by the private entity for the police officers. There's no on-duty officers being pulled off of duty for this.
Okay, appreciate it.
So even
Thank
that's not, thank you.
The next speaker is Francis, I'm sorry. After Ms. Francis is Roger Schoonover.
Greetings, Honorable Council. If I were you, I'd be wondering why a person who's not from Virginia Beach would be here. Well, I'm here representing Hamptonville's Black Caucus. We're trying to do this event simply because, if you haven't noticed, in the 7 cities, there is a major crime spree going on and major gun violence going on. So I am not in the disbelief that this gun buyback will solve all crime and all gun violence, but it is a start. It is something. That's all we're trying to do. We're trying to do something to help our communities. And hopefully, if this is successful, we can go to other cities and start there. Because, believe it or not, we're all in the Hampton Roads together. And so we have to start somewhere. And this is just a start. That's all I have.
Thank you for coming out, and we appreciate the Black Caucus for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Roger Schoonover. And then Diana Howard.
Well, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for the opportunity. And by the way, Rosemary, thanks for the update on Bobby Dyer's health. Appreciate that. My name is Roger Schoonover. I live at 1105 Whitestone Way, and I'm a board member of the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. And I am here in support of the firearms buyback initiative. Buyback initiatives, buyback programs have long been of interest. And there's a fair amount of research that has been done to determine what really makes them successful. And there are 2 things that seem to come to the fore. The first is how the program is run. That is, what are the rules? The second is whether it is a sort of a one-shot event, pardon the pun, or whether it's part of a long-term cooperative community effort. So how it is done is really important. The type of weapons, the price that is paid for those weapons, and whether those are weapons that are indeed used in the community for homicides and crime, that is, what is the relevance of the guns being collected to community violence? And everything I've seen of the Virginia Beach efforts suggests that this gun buyback is being done correctly. We're using the right rules. The second thing, or second point is, early research focused on gun buyback efforts, and the answer of the research was very clear, unequivocal. Did not work. Absolutely did not work. However, there's a big however, in recent years, research has clearly demonstrated that a gun buyback effort it works if it and will have an appropriate and positive impact on the community if it is part of a broad, long-term, cooperative, communication-based effort. So by itself, no. But as a part of an overall community-based effort, it does work. And the statistics are very clear on that. This program, as I've seen it, meets these criteria very well. It is sponsored by the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. We expect monies to support that from other community organizations. We believe it has been endorsed by the Virginia Beach Police Department, and I'm here to encourage you to confirm your support for the city. And that covers the two major issues. We're going to do it right, and who's going to do it, and will it be effective? And I think the answer is yes, it will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Diana Howard. After Miss Howard is Reverend DeZille.
Welcome, Diana.
Hi, how y'all doing? Okay, I appreciate the Hampton Roads Black Caucus doing this program. I know their heart's in the right place, but statistically, it doesn't reduce crime. No buyback gun program has ever been reported to have significantly reduced any gun crime. So I feel like you're giving the community a false sense of security when that's not going to happen. Is it my understanding that the police department has to be given permission to destroy guns? You can't just call up and say, you know, Uncle Thomas left me this gun and I don't want it. Could I turn it into you and it be destroyed?
Mr. Attorney.
Yeah, I mean, they don't do that because maybe they should. I mean,
City council approval is required for the city's participation in a gun buyback program. If someone wants to individually come in to the police department and turn over a gun, I stand to be corrected by the chief, but I believe they do accept them. But
Oh, okay.
this is to participate in a buyback program.
okay, because, you know, most of the guns turned in a buyback program are old or inoperable, you know, they're not anything of significance that somebody's going to use in a criminal act, you know, so it doesn't reduce crime. So, I mean, you could authorize the police to do that. I mean, if people want to get rid of guns that they don't want in their homes or whatever, they can turn it into Chesapeake Pawn and Gun. You certainly can't bring them to a metal disposal place and recycle them. So, I mean, doing some sort of advertising that the police department will accept, you know, turn-ins of this kind if you have guns that you don't want in your home that have been handed down to you or something like that. But maybe when they were talking about using some sort of, we need to concentrate on reducing crime itself. Maybe we could do some community-based policing in hotspot areas where there are drugs and gang-related, you know, gangs and stuff like that that are causing that kind of violence and stuff like that to reduce crime. So we can concentrate on that instead, or, you know, in conjunction with this, because the buyback program is just really symbolic and just, you know, it's not really effective without doing some sort of policing and community-based action along with the police department. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next three speakers are WebEx. Reverend DeZille, if you will pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning, you are unmuted and you may begin.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeremy Delzell. I'm a Virginia Beach citizen. The National Bureau of Economic Research has studied and concluded gun buyback programs, GBPs, which generally use public funds to purchase civilian, privately owned firearms, aim to reduce gun violence. However, next to nothing is known about their effects on firearm-related crimes or deaths. Using data from the National Incident-Based Reporting System, we find no evidence that GBPs reduce gun crime. Given our estimated null findings with 95% confidence, we can rule out decreases in firearm-related crime of greater than 1.3% during the year following a buyback. Using data from the National Vital Statistics System, we also find no evidence that GBPs reduce suicide or homicides where a firearm is involved. These results call into question the efficacy of city gun buyback programs in their current form. John Veronica, a researcher from Johns Hopkins University, who has co-authored 2 studies on the matter, states there is no evidence the buyback programs reduce gun violence. These are just a couple of the endless lists of research and studies that have been done, most of all which with supporting conclusions. So the question is, will any funding come from the taxpayers in this process, such as police involvement, destruction, or of turned-in firearms? The fact of the matter is, a very large percent of the firearms turned in are typically not the type of weapons that are used in crimes or violence, nor are the majority of the folks turning them in. It is extremely unlikely that a criminal felon would take part in such a program, as stated in most all cases proves this to be true. It is also reported that most citizens turning in firearms are turning in old, worn out, or broken guns to fund the purchase towards a new firearm, and more than likely still possess more firearms that were not turned into the GBP. I feel we are far better off addressing the root of the problem. Gun violence stems from organized crime and gang-related activities. It seems any effort and funding would be far better spent combating these issues. It has also been shown that teaching basic gun safety, starting at younger ages, to be very beneficial. And one additional question that I have, if this is a private organization that is putting this on, and private citizens are bringing guns to sell to this private organization, should there not be universal background checks done on every purchase that we as private citizens have to do amongst ourselves? If there's no police involvement other than the drop-off, how are we to know where these guns are actually going? I guess that's all I have to say, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Speaker is Robert Dean. Mr. Dean, if you would pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning, you are unmuted.
This evening, I would like to address the proposal brought forth by Council members Linwood Branch and Lewis Jones. I will be speaking on behalf of the Tyler Libertarian Party. I would like to preface my remarks by asking both Mr. Branch and Mr. Jones if either have or currently own weapons, and if they do, are they, as an act of endorsement for their proposal, going to be the first citizens to turn in weapons? And as an additional measure of support, I would suggest that Mr. Branch and Mr. Jones and any supporters of this initiative step and pledge their city council pay of $28,000 towards the funding of this buyback program, which is currently unknown. Mr. Branch, I understand you have past experience in handling weapons, so I guess that is the reason why your name is on this worthless proposal. And why do I say worthless? Simply because the compelling data that clearly shows gun back buy programs do not work. Here are the stats, and from the National Bureau of Economic Research, July 2021. GBPs, which use public funds to purchase civilians' privately owned firearms, aim to reduce gun violence. However, next to nothing is known about their effects on firearm-related crimes or deaths. Using data from the National Incident-Based Reporting System, we find no evidence that GBPs reduce gun crime. Given our estimated null findings with 95% confidence, we can rule out decreases in firearm-related crime of greater than 1.3% during the year following a buyback. Using data from the National Vital Statistics System, we also find no evidence that GBPs reduce suicides or homicides where a firearm was involved. These results call into question the efficacy of city gun buyback programs in their current form. We highlight 3 key findings. First, using data from the 1991 to 2015 National Incident-Based Reporting System, we find no evidence that GBPs are effective at deterring gun crime either in the short or longer run. The precision of our estimates is such that with 95% confidence, we can rule out decreases in gun crime of 1.3% in the 12 months following a GBP and 2.3% a year or more after a GBP. Second, in the 2 months following a GBP, we detect a small increase in gun crimes with no corresponding change in gun crimes. This finding is consistent with a possible criminal response to perceptions that the likelihood of self-defense among law-abiding gun owners. Finally, turning to data from the National Vital Statistics System, we find no evidence that gun buyback programs affected firearm-related suicides or homicides. And in conclusion, from Professor Eugene Vola from University of California, the people you're most worried about, criminals, They're either not going to turn in their guns, or if they do turn in their guns, they'll turn in some old broken down gun, get some money for it, and buy a new gun. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
The next speaker is Victoria Nichols. Ms. Nichols, if you'll pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning, you are unmuted. Ms. Nichols, if you'll proceed with your comments, thank you.
Somebody like to put a motion on the table? Mr. Branch?
So would I second make a motion to approve, and was that a second? Second. Okay, Lewis, second.
Any
Yeah,
discussion?
I just want to thank,
Can I called in to speak on this same thing, but
I don't have a card for you, sir. What's your name?
Joelle Jones, I called earlier today. She put me down, the clerk put me down.
Sorry, I don't have a card for you, but we can sure get a card. Is that okay, Vice Mayor?
Sure.
Mr. Jones, if you could go ahead and come on up. I'm sorry. We'll have you fill a card out after you're finished speaking.
Thank you. Oh, man, that's a lot of people. First of all, I want to say thank you, council. Thank you very much for having me here. I hate redundancy, so I'm not going to go through all the statistics about what everybody's been saying. So first, a little bit about my background. I'm a retired Navy chief, 25 years. I just retired last year. I'm also the gun president for National African American Gun Association here in Virginia Beach. All right, we have a membership of 106 personnel, about 67 black women. All right. And so why am I here today? I'm with the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. I'm on the executive board. And I was a little bit moved when I saw all the opposals. All right, so let me tell you my background. Before I joined the Navy, I was a gang member. All right, got initiated at the age of 13. Back in 1990s, you know, that era when black men were like considered, they had this whole thing called, oh man, you're not going to make it. So I wasn't supposed to live until I was 24. All right, I wish somebody had thought about a gun buyback program. Now, I wouldn't have turned my gun in, but I know that somebody in the community would have came in there and said, guess what, we care enough. So the purpose of Hampton Roads Black Caucus and this gun buyback program is not really to expect people to turn in their firearms. It's to say, guess what, I got somebody in this community who cares. I'm a firearms instructor. And in 1994, you know what Joe Biden said about me? I was a predator, a black man. I look like you, and by you, by association. I'm the oldest of 15 children.
Whoa.
That's 12 young sisters. I train people. I've trained 135 people, 88 black women this year. And you know what? There's one, she had 5 sons. And guess what? Just about 3 of those boys had guns that she don't even know where they got them from. I set them down. I set them down to talk to them. I said, hey man, if you're going to have a gun, you need to be educated. And nobody had ever said that to them. So if we don't get out there in the streets, in the hood, you look at me as that gang member who's going to bring firearms to your neighborhood, your district, your child, your grandkids. But you cannot sit up here and say that you're opposed to doing something that's going to get you out there in the community. Get faced. In the Navy, as leaders, you got to get out there and get on the street where the rubber meets the road. You can sit here and be comfortable behind this chair, make votes, do what you got to do. But if you don't get out there, you're failing the people that you're supposed to be leading and representing. Now, I don't know about y'all. I don't care about statistics. I know that for a fact. I got plenty of firearms. I'm not turning in nothing. But I want to educate. I want to educate the people. I want to tell them, hey, gun safety. Lock your firearms up. I'm tired of hearing kids shooting their parents during Zoom meetings. You know, clean the firearms, killing a woman next door. That's stupid. So that's what I'm here for. I don't care about the numbers. I just care about getting in front of people and making things happen, educating and training our people, especially our young black boys and girls. That's all I got.
And thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Proud, sir.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I want to speak from personal experience.
You would know.
I'm in the funeral business. Have been for over 60 years. And I can't tell you, I can't remember the exact count, but I can tell you that it's more than I can count on these two hands of young people who have gotten hold of the gun in their home, unbeknown to their parents, because it wasn't locked up, or the parents just forgot it was even there, and they ended up either shooting themselves, or they shot their brother, or their sister, or somebody else. And if buying back a few guns is going to stop that from happening in a family, then I'm all for it. And that's why I endorse this ordinance. I think it's the right thing to do, and if it saves one life, it's worth it.
Mr. Moss?
My only comment is this is people exercising their individual right to spend their money on an initiative. They could be buying back quilts, and it wouldn't matter to me because it's the same principle of people doing something that they think helps with their own resources. And if it wasn't for the fact that the state law required us to pass a resolution that we don't have to do for individuals, we wouldn't even be acting. So this, not to support this is really to impede people exercising their right to have an activity that's lawful. So I don't care if it's effective or not. They think it makes a difference. The law says they can go for it. We're empowering people to exercise the liberty that we all say we're going to defend. And it doesn't take any, like that guy says, I'm out there, but you're not getting mine, but he understands. I think he was a great spokesman for buyback programs everywhere, and he ought to somehow get it copyrighted and get royalties on it. But I think it's hard to get in the way of people exercising their liberty.
Okay. Voting board's open?